We begin with breaking news from Gaza, where Israeli forces are carrying out a raid on Gaza's largest hospital, al-Shifa. They've asked everyone to gather in the courtyard in preparation for the evacuation from the medical complex. Earlier, the director of health said he'd heard gunfire and the movement of Israeli tanks inside the complex. There are reports that an Israeli airstrike had hit the fourth floor of the main building. Well, days of siege and airstrikes have crippled al-Shifa, which is situated in Gaza City in the north. More than 3,000 patients, medical staff and displaced Palestinians are sheltering in the complex. At least 11,300 Palestinians have been killed since October the 7th. Doctors say patients at al-Shifa are at critical risk. Dozens of premature babies were transferred on Tuesday within the facility to an area with electricity, but they're not in incubators because oxygen supplies have run out. Let's speak now to Hani Mahmoud. He joins us now live from Khan Yunis inside the Gaza Strip. Hani, good to see you. What is the latest that you're hearing about this Israeli raid inside al-Shifa hospital?
Yes, well, as we know, within the past few days, the al-Shifa hospital complex has been brought to a crippling point under heavy airstrikes and bombardment and tank shells. And as of early hours of this morning, Israeli special forces, under heavy cover of gunfire and tank shells, has raided the al-Shifa hospital. And what they are doing now, they're conducting this aggressive search, room by room, corridor by corridor, all the way to the basement of the hospital, searching for what Israeli has claimed so far, based on their intelligence, or in addition to American intelligence, that the Shifa hospital houses a command center for Hamas leadership and Hamas element carrying out their operation. And this is not the first time we hear that. We heard it since the beginning of the war, and also in the past that the Shifa hospital was at the spotlight of these claims. So far, there are no concrete evidence of what the Israeli claims put forward. But what really frustrating about these raids, that we have some of the most vulnerable group of people inside the hospital, babies who have been taken off the incubators. We have those critically injured. We have patients with a chronic disease, and some of them they need that oxygen, they need electricity to stay in the intensive care unit. On top of that, there are electronic gates now set up around around the buildings of the hospital, where evacuees, those who took the hospital as a refuge, sheltering from the heavy bombardment, are asked individually. They are interrogated, and then they're taken and forced to take their clothes off and sat in groups at the courtyard of the hospital. And since last night, the weather has changed. It's getting a little colder. There is rain, so there's some inhumane conditions going on with those evacuees being interrogated, pulled out of the building, and sat outside with almost their clothes off at the courtyard of the hospital. There are talks about the Israeli are making they're providing some medical supplies and incubators for the babies. It's just the questions always at the practicality of this. This has come after 3 days of heavy bombardment of the hospital and its facility, destroying much of its necessities and intensive care unit and incubator. Those babies needed right away to be in incubators, but after 3 days, we don't see how practical this is going to be. But the situations are getting very critical at the hospital now. Yeah.
The Israelis have been talking about getting incubators to al-Shifa, but the issue, as far as I understand it, is not the lack of incubators, it is the lack of oxygen. What is the latest you can tell me about the fate of these 36 babies, I believe, who were recently moved to another room? Are they all still alive?
Well, we know those babies are already in danger. They were born at a premature stage, and they needed to be in incubators. They need all the necessities. They need that flow of oxygen to stay alive and to sustain their growth. But for the past 3 days, we know there was no oxygen. The station next to the incubators was destroyed 3 days ago. There's no flow of oxygen. What doctors have resorted to is just a very old methods to keep those babies alive by wrapping them with multiple layers of a blanket. But this is so far is not helping us, not provide them with the suitable environment that they needed to grow. And we know those babies have to be inside those incubators. So the talk about now, they're bringing those incubators. Okay, how about the oxygen? How are you going to provide that? Is there a pipeline for oxygen, or are you going to fix that station that generates oxygen? So there are a lot of question marks about this, and my fear is that this is all, there is a lot of publicity about this going on, but how practical it is, and based on what we heard from doctors in the Shifa hospital, it's not going to help at all. It's been 3 days. Those babies are out of incubators. Those critically injured are not getting the immediate medical intervention and in the intensive care unit. And now the talk about medical supplies and incubators, it doesn't seem to help at all, other than the publicity it's getting.
Right. And Hani, I wanted to also find out a bit more about the humanitarian situation of the people that have moved from the north to the south in Khan Yunis, where you are. I understand that there was some heavy rain yesterday. A lot of these people, obviously, living in makeshift tents. The rain would have caused a lot of problems.
Yes, absolutely. The rain has unfortunately made the conditions for these people, for evacuees, very bad. As most of these people here at the hospital, for example, the vast majority of evacuees, as the number tripled, every family tried to set up those plastic shack or plastic tent to stay in it. But with the heavy rain, most of these tents have drowned, and with water inside there, on mattresses, on the equipment that they managed to get with them. It just, the situations are not very, very suitable for humans right now. And people who are in the streets who don't have any of these elements at all, no tents, no survival items with them. So on our way to the hospital, we've seen an example of how people are just standing in the rain, trying to hide under a tree or under a balcony, but it doesn't help. The rain was so heavy, and it drowned most of the areas. And we really know infrastructure in Gaza suffered a lot due to the heavy bombardment and the airstrike. And even before that, it was reported that the infrastructure needed lots of work just to be suitable for people living around here. But unfortunately, the situations are getting really worse. What makes it more worse now is that the lack of supplies. So we're talking about there is no gas, for example. A propane gas is running out as well, so people have no way of setting up those special object to warm themselves in this cold weather. They don't have, let's say, enough food supplies to stay healthy. They don't have medical supplies just to run the necessary intervention to fight, for example, the flu or cold.
Okay, thank you so much for your reporting and that update. Hani Mahmoud there.